order. Please turn on your microphone when speaking and mute when not speaking. The MAG public comment process allows members of the public to comment on items on today's agenda or on items that fall under agency's jurisdiction. If you would like to comment at today's meeting, please fill out a white request to speak card by the door and give it to MAG staff. If you parked in the garage, parking validators are available by the door. If you purchased a transit ticket to come to the meeting, please see staff for the ticket. Hearing assisted devices are also available for MAG staff. Brian, please take a roll call and please share that you are here, your organization name, after Brian calls you.
I see you, Danielle.
It cut out for us. We couldn't hear that.
Yeah, I couldn't hear that. Hi, good morning, Danielle Wright. I'm the Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence.
Thank you. Letitia Brown Gambino.
Good morning. Keys to Change. I am present.
Tim Birch.
Tim Birch, Community Health and Human Services for the City of Tempe.
Liz DaCosta.
Good morning, Liz DaCosta with Access.
Michael Hughes.
Here, a new leaf.
Jessica Raymond. Charles Sullivan.
Hi, Charles Sullivan with ABC Housing.
Sienna Valdez.
Sienna Valdez, co-chair.
Co-chair Rachel Milne.
Present, City of Phoenix.
Nathan Smith. Chris Hallett.
Chris Hallett, City of Peoria Neighborhood and Human Services.
Caitlin Dean.
Here, Caitlin Dean, Maricopa County.
Gabriel Jaramillo. Emma Garcia. Matthew Kelly.
Present, Mercy Care.
Co-chair Vicki Phillips.
Present, Community Bridges. Right. Next item on the agenda is a call to the audience. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under the Continuum of Care Board and that are not on the agenda, or that are on the agenda for discussion and not for action. 15 minutes will be provided for the call to the audience agenda item, unless the committee requests an exception. Brian, were there any comments received or anyone who wishes to offer comments at this time?
There were no comments received.
All right, thank you very much. Okay. Item 3A is for informational purposes only. Does any member of the committee have any questions or request a presentation on this item? No? Brian, do you have a question? Okay. All right. The next is agenda item number 4, approval of the consent agenda. Item 4A is on the agenda for consent. Does any member of the board have any questions, comments, or request a presentation at this time? Does any member of the public wish to comment on any items on the consent agenda? All right. May I have a motion to approve consent item 4A?
This is Rachel. I move to approve.
Thank you, Rachel. And may I have a second?
This is Danielle, I second.
Thank you, Danielle, for the second. All right. Is there a discussion of the motion from the board or comments from the public? All right. We will take a voice vote of everyone in the room and those online. Those online who have turned on their cameras. Those online who do not want to or cannot turn on their camera will have an opportunity to participate in a roll call vote after the voice vote. For those participating in the voice vote, please keep your cameras on until the vote is final. Those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I will now ask Brian to proceed with a roll call of those joining online who did not have their cameras on.
Sienna Valdez.
Aye.
All right, very good. The motion passes and we'll move on to the next agenda item. Yes. Okay. Sure. And then revisit. So just for clarity's sake, we'll have Mr. Southey go, and then we'll go back and revisit cricket, and then item 6 point in time. Perfect. All right, very good. All right. Representatives from the Coordinated Entry Work Group will present the current status of the Maricopa Assessment and Prioritization Tool. This will have a rollout review on the proposed prioritization process and request board approval to retire the VI SPDAT for single adults.
Good morning, everybody.
Greg, could you please pull up the item 7 presentation? Sorry to curveball
Yeah,
that.
give me a moment. I wasn't given one. Give me a second. I don't have a presentation for item 7. I have 6, 8, 9, and 11.
Stand by. I'm looking for it with you. Apologies. Item 9.
Yeah, one moment, please.
Okay, good morning, everyone. You can go ahead and advance the slide, Greg. So as you're all aware, the Coordinated Entry Committee has been working for the past 2 years now on assessment and prioritization for our community in regards to the VI SPDAT following the evaluation that was conducted by Homebase. And so we've gone through a lot. I'm not going to go over everything that we've gotten done up to this point because you all have been getting updates and being voting on things as they've come up. And so one of the most recent items that we've been working on is actually prioritization. And so 2-3 months ago, we had a town hall that the board approved where we brought in community members to provide feedback into what they thought was important and valuable for us to be considering for the purpose of prioritization. And we use that feedback to actually go about having this, going through this process. Just to make sure we're all on the same page, when I talk about prioritization, there's actually 2 parts of it. There's the actual assessment of vulnerability that occurs via the MAP tool that we developed. And then there's the actual prioritization that happens, which is referring people to the different levels of intervention that we have in our community, which are rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing. We wanted to make sure that we were being mindful of that. The tool that we were using was consistent, scalable, and it was appropriately recommending people so that we weren't getting people who were very high acuity going into programs that weren't really doing a good job of addressing the needs that they had. But we also did not want to have to force people into programs that were providing more services than people really needed. And so one of the things that we really wanted to be mindful of was the use of buckets, which was the most popular option that people gave to us in the town hall. The bucketed approach is basically saying rather than having one big pool of rapid rehousing, we would be very mindful of the fact that people could go into various levels of rapid rehousing. Some programs have higher level interventions within rapid rehousing than other programs, provide more services than other programs and things like that. Next slide, please. With all of the feedback we've got, we are at a stage where we're ready to make some recommendations. The first recommendation we're making is that we're prepared to retire the VI SPDAT in its entirety for the purpose of prioritizing single adults or assessing and prioritizing single adults. And the second is that we'd like to delay the retirement of the SPDAT for families for another 6 months while we continue to do assessment. Next slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. So last board meeting, I believe we did a request for, or there was an approval for a data request for all of the MAP tool data for the past 1.5 years that we had been piloting it. What we really wanted was a subset of cases of people that had conducted both the MAP tool and the VI SPDAT and had already been referred to housing. I'll spare you the details of the actual analysis that was conducted unless you guys really care about the math. But the important stuff is that we had 499 cases of singles or families that met those subset requirements. This is the information that we had. There was 98 cases of people referred to PSH, 401 referred to rapid rehousing. There were 312 families and 187 single adults. Next slide. This is just a representation of how the tool or the scores were distributed when you look at the map tools and the interventions that people had been scored into. We use this as a baseline to determine the prioritization brackets that we would be using. Again, if people have questions about this, I'm happy to explain, but if not, then we can move on. So next slide. There we go. Through the analysis, what we found was that there were a couple of questions on the new map tool that seemed to be highly correlated with the results of someone being scored into PSH. And those were the primary reason for homelessness being COVID, mental health concerns, or a medical event. And then there were also time spent in juvenile or adult correctional facilities. And then things related to chronicity, being chronic head of household, having a disability, or being active on the by name list for more than 12 months. We also found that a MAP score range of around 110 to 120 was what seemed to be the break point for people starting to get PSH. There was no one under that score that scored into PSH. Next slide, please. So our recommendation is pretty straightforward. Everyone, once they complete the MAP tool, would be referred to rapid rehousing and would be eligible to receive it. And then in order to be eligible for PSH, you would need to score above 120. If you score above 120, you have the ability to choose between PSH or rapid rehousing when you're selected for a referral. So someone could be selected for rapid rehousing and elect to defer to waiting for a PSH voucher if they have a score above 120. Alternatively, if they have a score above 120 and they get referred for PSH, they could have the option to defer to rapid rehousing. Otherwise, everyone would be eligible for rapid rehousing based off of the highest score on the MAP tool. Next slide. I should be waiting until I'm done to answer questions, right? Or do you want questions as we're going?
I think we can wait,
Okay.
wait till the end and hold our questions.
Okay. Just as an example of what I've explained, this is a pool of everyone currently waiting for a referral. Next slide. They would be ordered by their MAP tool. So no matter what comes up, this is the order that they would be referred. Next slide. Everyone is eligible for rapid rehousing. So if a rapid rehousing voucher came available, it would go to the person who scored 240, but they could choose that, hey, I don't want rapid rehousing. I'd rather wait for a PSH voucher to become available. Next slide. And so then it would go down to the person at 230, then the person at 120. If all of those people deferred, that would never happen. But in the event that it did, the PSH voucher would then be able to go to the next people. But for right now, it would just stay in that group. Next slide. But if someone elected to defer, the 4 rapid rehousing slots would go to 240, 230, 120, and then 90. If someone didn't defer, it would go to 230, 120, 90, and 80, and so on. Next slide. Next slide. And this is everything I've explained. Next slide. This would be a lot easier if I could hit the forward button. Thank you for your work, Craig. There we go. Okay, yeah. Can you go back 3 slides, Craig? Oh, sorry, advanced 1. So because there's a limited number of PSH vouchers, if you score above 120, you get prioritized based off of your score number. So the top 3 people, if there were 3 vouchers available, would be the person 240, 230, and 150. So those people would get PSH vouchers. Next slide. If someone is waiting for rapid rehousing, the PSH voucher then would drop down to the person who's 120. So they have the ability, because they scored above 120, they have the ability to just select which intervention they would feel is more appropriate for themselves. Next slide. Oh, okay. And then rapid rehousing would start then at the next people. So anyone under 120 would only be eligible for rapid rehousing. Any questions about that?
Can you go into rapid rehousing and then just wait for a spot in permanent supportive housing?
There would be the option to continue doing progressive engagement like we've done historically. One of the things that we're waiting for is seeing how people actually perform once they're triaged via map, because we want to be able to make sure we're mapping people or matching people appropriately and also doing the progressive engagement process in a way that's appropriate. So that would be coming after we've gotten a chance to see what this would look like. So the option would still exist, yes.
Thank you.
I do have a question. This is Tish. So the rapid rehousing folks that score lower, everybody's eligible for rapid rehousing, but if they score low, is there an option for shared housing or a self-resolve intervention?
Those currently
it's-
managed by coordinated entries. So while they're certainly available, that's not something that I can currently speak to, unfortunately.
I love that everyone is going to have choice, especially on the high end. If you don't have the inventory of permanent supportive housing, that they have a choice to go into rapid. But it just seems like the rapid rehousing intervention is still going to be used primarily for all, because that is where our inventory is, correct?
Yes.
Jessica Cruz.
Is someone speaking in the room? Sorry.
Progressive engagement, and kind of those spots that you were talking about being available. Where do they fall in those buckets? Like if somebody needs progressive engagements and you only have 3 spots, excuse me, and they're currently in the system, I think we're already kind of struggling with that as a system. Just finding those permanent supportive housing spots before them falling back into homelessness.
So we have not fully established a process for progressive engagement yet because we need to see how this process performs before we build that out. So we're trying to be very intentional about taking like a stepwise approach in that we're doing this piece by piece to make sure that each part works before we move on to the next step. So while it's been made very clear that progressive engagement needs to exist and that's currently managed by the leads, we don't have a clearly drawn out progressive engagement process because we need to be able to see how the map prioritization works before we can actually establish that process. So it's something that we're very conscious of and we'll continue discussing, but I can't answer any questions about how it would actually look yet because we haven't established that yet.
Just a quick question. So the request is to retire the VI split out as part of this. What would that go into effect on a particular date, time? What was the idea behind that? Can you share a little bit about that?
I believe we said the end of June. I'm looking to now.
And is the community ready and everything is a go with a new tool?
The leads, as far as I'm aware, have fully trained all their access points on the map tool and have gone through to ensure that they know how the tool works and can actually implement it. So all that's left at this point is to actually remove the VI spit out from HMIS for singles.
Additionally, I think we also would need to update policy and procedure as it relates to coordinated entry to accommodate, but that's the plan for the next month, and that would be presented at the June board meeting as well.
I know Nathan and Liz had her hand up as well, so I don't know who wants to go next.
Liz, you want to go ahead?
You can go, Nathan. Thank you, though.
Yeah. So my question really is just there is prioritization all the way down at the lowest score now, whereas once upon a time that wouldn't have been the case. That seems like a change that's happened, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I think for me, oh, sorry, did you have something else? I think the biggest shift is on our rapid rehousing providers. I think some of their contracts read that they'll serve individuals within a certain range. So trying to aim towards lower acuity in order to like increase their ability to obtain employment and then ultimately exit rapid rehousing with a successful exit. So were they included in this discussion and they're ready to implement where they actually receive the referral from the highest acuity individual if that individual is electing to receive that resource? Are they aware?
So when we had the community forum 2 months ago, funders and program providers were both invited and participated in. I think most of the room was program providers. And so we've been communicating with them semi-regularly as we're going through this process, and as far as I'm aware, the leads have as well. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Sorry, I was looking back at Anna. And so one of the things that will need to happen in the next month is updating MOUs to reflect that exact thing that you're mentioning, Liz. And so we'll be handling that as a part of coordinated entry and supporting the leads however we need to make sure that the MOUs can get updated to reflect that change.
Yeah, that's great. It's always been a challenge when, you know, you have someone with extreme vulnerabilities unable to end their homelessness because we're just waiting on a very small amount of permanent supportive housing, you know, capacity. But also it brings us to this like question around services. So here we say every referral connects clients with adequate services. So that's the rapid rehousing provider would be responsible for connecting the member that's referred to them with the appropriate level of services. Is it the rapid rehousing provider who's taking on that responsibility?
I'm sorry, can you say that again? The rapid rehousing provider taking on the responsibilities of handling the higher acuity needs, or?
Yeah, making sure that the client is connected to the right level of supportive services to be able to help address the needs. Is it the rapid rehousing provider who takes that on?
Yes and no. That's actually what this slide here is about. I wanted to make sure I answered questions before I got into next steps for it. So if there are no other questions, I will get to that part.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Sorry about that.
No, perfect. That was a good segue. So the next steps following this, if it's approved by the board, will be that we'll be incorporating a feedback loop into the actual referral process for the purposes of prioritization. So once a client is actually referred to a provider after, I believe we said a week, the provider will have the ability to actually go back into HMIS and rate the clients on how appropriate the client was for their services. So once they've gotten a chance to actually do the intake, meet with the client and establish the needs of the client, they'll be able to rate on a scale of 1 to 10 whether the services that the provider is providing is appropriate for the level of need for the client. The goal is that once we have this information, we'll be able to go back and build buckets of different levels of acuity that are appropriate for each provider. So if a provider is a low acuity client or a program, for example, they only provide 90 days of assistance and a certain amount of funding for the client, and they're getting referrals that are high acuity, we would be able to then adjust and say, this is a program that should only be getting referrals from a score 0 to 50, for example. And then we would be able to adjust from there. So the goal is to use, once this is approved, is actually create a feedback loop that will allow us to be more targeted in our referrals, to let people be able to actually get, or programs get referrals for people that are more appropriate for them, and to allow us to identify gaps in our services in our community where we have perhaps a lot of people scoring into a certain score range where there are not a lot of programs currently being funded to address that score range.
I just have a quick question on that scoring. Is it a guided scoring where things need to be present in order to hit 10, or is it subjective?
It's subjective. So I've actually had this conversation quite a bit in the past like 4 years. Our staff are incredibly good at determining whether someone's going to be successful in their own program, to a point where some programs are able to go, hey, I'm getting this person and I can say very confidently this person's going to fail, and 6 months later they're going to fail. Or they'll go, hey, you're giving me this referral, or you're not giving me this referral, and I think this person would do fine in our program, so you can go ahead and refer us, even though they seem like they need higher need, and they're able to be successful there. And so we feel pretty confident that providers are able to use a subjective measure to grade appropriateness, because they have a pretty good sense based off of their own history within the program.
Richard, just one question. So it sounds like we're going to implement this feedback loop. So we're going to do the referrals regardless of whether or not providers think that these clients are going to be successful, to do the feedback loop and then kind of implement what we learn.
Yeah, we went back and forth on this quite a bit, and there didn't seem to be really a good way to determine who would be a correct fit for a program without creating the feedback loop first. And quite honestly, this is really what's happening now anyways. And so it sort of seemed like it was I was going to say zero-sum game, but that's not the right word. it made the most sense to allow it to happen naturally and see how clients and programs naturally align themselves within the new schema.
What happens if all of the providers can only take the low acuity clients?
We sort of expect that's exactly what's going to happen. And that's the reality of where our clients are at now. And so if that happens, that gives guidance back to, or gives feedback back to the board to say these are things that are needed in our community right now. Because otherwise, the other option is that we're referring high need clients into programs that aren't well suited for them. And that's creating less success in our system either way. So I think that one is a zero-sum game, and that it's either we're setting our clients up for failure or we're identifying gaps in the community. So.
Well, yeah, because like, and then right now the alternative is that high acuity individual just remains homeless. Because they would be only scoring for permanent supportive housing and like waiting for that permanent supportive housing resource. So that's just, I think, an interesting thing to note too.
Right.
I think this is a big shit. Oh, sorry. Did you have something?
No, I was just going to say that unfortunately that's an issue to your point that exists currently, but there's no way for us to identify where those gaps are. So our hope is that this process allows us to more accurately identify what program needs exist within the provider community.
Right. And I think this is a big shift. Mostly it seems like for the rapid rehousing providers, and then a lot of expectation on, you know, how we want them to kind of standardize their ways that they're collecting information and how they're scoring, you know, providing this scale that's going to help inform a lot of information for moving forward. So I think for me, I would just suggest that we think about creating an ad hoc rapid rehousing work group for a period of time to really make sure we've got a place and platform for them to be, you know, having discussions around this stuff and the results, and make sure we get some consistency where we're hoping we'll see it.
Is that a recommendation for coordinated entry, or is that something you're saying the board should create, just to be clear?
It was food for thought for right now from my opinion of what's going on, but I think we'll be able to kind of walk through if others have any additional questions or comments to get to a place where we do a vote and then maybe potentially add that as a contingency. But just to mention for now, for something I'm seeing.
Okay. In that case, Craig can go to the next slide. I think it should be switching to families now. Yeah. Next slide. So unfortunately, the family analysis did not go as smoothly as the singles analysis did. The easiest way to explain this is that the map tool for singles lined up to have correlation with the VI spit at, meaning we could look at VI spit at performance to understand how someone might perform on the map tool. When you looked at families, that was not the case. Families scored with a lot more variability within the map tool in comparison to the VI spit at than singles did, and so they couldn't really use the VI spit at as a baseline for the map tool. Additionally, there were only 10 families that scored in a PSH over the entire test period. So that didn't leave a very big sample to actually conduct analysis with. Next slide. So with that in mind, our recommendation right now is to delay the transition by 6 months. One of the things that we really need to do is check back in with the community and get some feedback on the map tool for its purpose of serving families. Really what we want to focus on is looking back at how questions are currently scored on the map tool when it comes to families to see if there's a different scoring method that we can use with the questions that currently exist to make it better align with the needs of families. One of the things that changed was, I believe we said in March, we changed the score for chronic homelessness on families on the map tool from 100 points to 50 points. And so just making small changes like that to see if we can better align the map tool for the needs of families rather than for the needs of singles to see if it performs better when doing the analysis is going to be helpful. Then once we're able to do that, we can see if we can also look to identify any other unique factors for families. So really, we just need a little bit more time to be able to conduct analysis for families. There just wasn't enough information to make any recommendation that wouldn't be more than us guessing from a subject matter expert perspective, which is certainly valuable. But I think we wanted to be a little more data driven in this decision just so that we can be more confident in the recommendation that we're making. Next slide. What I want to make sure I'm drawing attention to is the fact that what we're asking here is to proceed with prioritization changes for family or for singles, but slow down with them for families, which would mean that the two systems that have historically worked in lockstep with each other would now be functioning on different types of rules. And I think that's a very important thing to be mindful of as we make this decision. And so I really just want to make sure I'm drawing attention to that as you all are making your decision to vote on it. As we discussed over the course of the next month, we would be updating our coordinated entry policies if this was approved. We would be looking to Solari to update or to implement HMIS changes so that the provider is able to do the feedback loop scoring. And then we would be doing an evaluation plan so that as we're going forward into the next 6 months and the next year and beyond that, we're able to continuously evaluate and look at the map tool to ensure that it's performing the way that we want it to. Next slide. I think that's it. Oh, yeah. And then over the long term, for families in particular, we'll be fine-tuning the process to see if we can revisit this conversation with the families and move them forward onto the next stages as well. And then creating the bucketing system using the feedback loop. Next slide. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Thank you, Richard. There any other discussions or comments from the board? Questions?
I mean, for me, I'm not a rapid rehousing provider, so I don't know if we have any in the room who have any thoughts on how you operationalize this, or you feel excited about it, concerned, to determine whether or not we should, as a board, make a rapid rehousing ad hoc work group a contingency of this. I know that would require more time from folks, which we want to be mindful of, but I'd love to hear if anyone currently operates a rapid rehousing program, what their thoughts are.
Anyone have any additional questions, comments, or feedback on the rapid rehousing component?
This is Brian Gruders with MAG. I don't have a comment on rapid rehousing, but I would just like to say that we are approaching 2 years in this process. Just wanted to kind of give a shout out to this group for plugging along, getting it done, coming forward with a product that we can all look at and evaluate. I just think it's really impressive where we landed. And when I handed this off to my colleague Natalie, I think it was really up in the air if we were going to get this done by June. And I'm very impressed. Just wanted to say that.
I just have a couple of, sorry. I just have a couple of questions. How often are you all going to provide feedback loop opportunities? I mean, how often is that going to occur? What's the frequency of that?
As far as the feedback loop for providers on the referrals, or feedback loop on
the referrals, on, rapid rehousing providers engaged in the process, CE providers. Is there a plan for that throughout this implementation?
Yeah, so the actual feedback loop for the individual client referrals is done after a week of the referral existing. So it's done on a continuing basis. Feedback just in general on system performance and how this new change is occurring would be ongoing. We're continuously meeting about this. This is the top item on every single agenda for coordinated entry. So we're constantly having conversations about it. And I think we're looking at basically a 6-month cycle of this is the project. 6 months, let's stop at the end of 6 months and revisit to see if we need to do another 6 months. So it's a continuous feedback cycle.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions or comments before I proceed with the motion?
Just that I also think that the ad hoc rapid group would be really, really helpful for this moving forward. And I know that not as a provider of rapid rehousing, but as a funder for agencies that are doing rapid rehousing, a lot of the feedback that we get is really around just the structure in general of acuity for clients and the access to housing. And so I know that that's going to come up quite a bit. And I just anticipating that coming up as one of the things that we hear about. And so I think of like threshold as that program being something that helps support rapid rehousing programs and things like that, like structural pieces of the puzzle that we might have to come back and revisit later on. So just throwing that in there.
Thank you, Caitlin. All right, so the motion I put forth is, may I have a motion to approve the retirement of the VI SPDAT for single adults?
I'll first, I guess I'll motion.
Nathan Smith, I'll second.
Right, Matt and Nathan. Continued discussion is to, I think, just the feedback that I heard here, is just to consider the development of an ad hoc rapid rehousing group. Is that correct?
For me, I think it would need to be included in our vote in order to ensure we're able to operationalize it. So it would become a contingency, but so we can continue on. We have a motion to approve in a second. So I think we continue on with the vote and then just see where it lands.
Yeah, Liz, and I did add it as a discussion for the motion from the board. Do we need to revisit the motion again and vote with, do we need to revisit that again, Brian?
I think now that it's been motioned and seconded, and you have to vote as it stands, the motion that you made as worded, and then vote up or down. And then if voted down, then you would reform the motion to include that discussion item, I believe. And then I would just say we can form that work group.
Okay.
Anytime you ask us to form a work group, we can certainly do that. So if this passes, would just let us know and we'll start a work group.
You could vote for it and then still have a work group. So.
Yeah.
I'm good with that? Right. All right. We will take a voice vote of everyone in the room and those online who have turned on their cameras. Those online who do not want to or cannot turn on their camera will have an opportunity to participate in a roll call vote after their voice vote. For those participating in the voice vote, please keep your cameras on until the vote is final. Those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, please say nay. All right. I will now ask Brian to proceed with a roll call of those joining online who did not have their cameras on.
Sienna Valdez,
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much. The motion passes and we, it sounds like we'll be forming an ad hoc group. So thank you.
Can I just ask a quick question about the ad hoc group? How many rapid rehousing providers do we have in our system right now?
I'll have to get back to you with an exact number, but if you tell me that you want it to say be 60, 70% providers and then a funder or two or something like that, we can make that happen.
I just want to make sure all rapid rehousing providers are invited to participate on it. And it'd be great to have a funder or two as well, but
I think so.
I think the
wasn't
funder
sure, like, the
perspective is going to
community.
be super important. If there's any changes needed, like they need to be a part of that ongoing conversation.
Maybe we can bring back a plan. I also think it might be helpful to have someone from Threshold involved. If you all are amenable, but it seems like we could get a good group together so we can start conversation around that and maybe bring back a report in June.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, I think getting Threshold involved is a great idea.
and to whoever's point, it was, that contract amendments will likely need to happen just based on the decision today as well with funders. So
Yeah, and definitely a funder because they need to be aware of some of the service delivery changes and aware that there may be some changes in outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
Quick question to your point, Rachel. If contract changes need to happen, that's got to happen pretty quickly, I assume, right? Or do we have some time on that?
depending on who the funder is, it takes a little while to get a contract amendment going. So I just, yeah, I think the sooner you involve them, the better.
Okay.
Good discussion. Thank you.
I would just add too that we want to include the contacts from the health plans as well in that, because it sounds like we're gonna have a lot of effort in service delivery. And so at Access, we would work to have our health plan liaisons attend that rapid rehousing ad hoc work group. So I'll definitely watch out for MAG to present more information on the logistics so we can make sure they're included.
Thank you, Liz.
Just real quick, a question for Liz. Liz, is H2O going to be in position to sort of be a resource or possibly, I don't know, add to some of these interventions with additional housing resources? I'm just throwing this out there.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think on the whole coordinated entry system side, when a member is scoring for permanent supportive housing and is H2O eligible, they will come with an H2O provider that is trained in the SAMHSA evidence-based practice and provides a 1-to-15 caseload ratio. So there's like a subpopulation of what's happening in our system that will be very well serviced. I think for this conversation, at Access, we also have our contracts with our managed care organization, so all the health plans, and they're responsible for providing community-based services to their members, and contracting with a network of providers to provide those services. So I think there's just a ton of opportunity for us to use our existing contracts with our managed care organizations to help develop that service delivery system as we implement this change.
Can I say something, please? I've been thinking about the coordinated entry meetings that we've recently had, and it's come up a couple of times. And I've been trying to figure out if this fits here. If not, we can table it and talk about it whenever we can. But I think the coordinated entry group has been really wanting a lot more public input. And there's a sense that they need to have our approval as the board for that to happen every time they want to do something bigger. And I would like us to make it clear that they don't need to ask us that. We don't need to be signing off on them seeking input from people. That's what I have to say. Matt, maybe you can clarify a little more since you're in the room, if you know what I'm even talking about.
Yeah, I guess I do know what you're talking about to some extent. I think there's like a fine line between making sure that the board is informed about the work that we're doing and also knowing that we have the freedom to do some of these forums and discussions and get feedback. Like I believe we had to present to the board to get approval for the prioritization conversation as well as some other things as well. So if there's a little bit more leeway for the committee to do some of that work, I think that would be appreciated. I think we're also trying to be conscious about the fact that we're not constantly forming a work group to ask for somebody's opinion on everything as well. So I think we're trying to be intentional, but also, so if there's a little bit of freedom there for the committee, that would be, I think, great for the committee to be able to just have a little bit more, I think, leeway to set up some of these meetings without having to go to a board meeting. If that works for everybody. Is that a yes or not? Do we need to make a motion?
I don't think we can because it's not on the agenda, but
Okay.
good topic.
Well,
Not on the agenda.
okay, so then let me clarify that since it's not on the agenda, do I need to come back and ask for this to be on the agenda to do this? Or okay, just checking. I'm just covering my bases here. All right, thank you everybody for allowing me the space.
Thanks. All right, Brian, if we're in if no further conversation around this, Brian, if we're in a good spot, can we revisit 5 and go back the agenda? Okay. All right, so item 5 on the agenda was a continuation of Jessica Cruz and Cricket Weatherington and their board membership. I do know that both Jessica and Cricket answered the questionnaire around the reason and the goals if they are continued on the board. And so at this particular point, I know we all had an opportunity to review the information. I don't know, Cricket, if you would like to spend a minute or two just quickly talking about that. And Cricket, I believe you would follow suit.
Who you want to go first, me or Jessica?
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant Cricket and Jessica. My apologies.
Okay, so you want me to go first? I like Jessica to go first, but I'll go first.
I had
the
you.
Okay. The reason that I asked to continue this work is because I think we're at a crucial point. There's a lot of things going on. We don't need less board members. Who I am is still the same person I was. I wasn't ever really a representative of AHI per se. I was a member of the community with experience in this system. And I think that I want to be able to continue to contribute through this term. I don't know if that's the right word, through till we get to the time when the application's open. So this year, I guess maybe is a better way to say it. And I mean, I don't really know what else to say other than that I'm committed. I remain committed to this work.
Thank you, Cricket.
May I make a quick comment? Just as a clarification, after reading the charter through again, I don't believe that it would be a continuation into the next recruitment period. It would be a continuation of their original term cycle, which would just mean that they would continue through until they were originally going to expire their term.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
Right. Good morning. Jessica Cruz, Copa Health. I would just like to ask you all to consider my continuation. I've been pretty active, with the board, the work groups, committees, for quite some time. And I know I've seen a lot of changes in the board and MAG staff throughout the years. And I'm really hopeful that if you allow me to continue to stay, that I can, have the continued knowledge that we've worked on. I go back to the Built from Zero back in 2014, working with work groups and so forth. And then I also have lived experience as a young child. So I do hold housing as a passion of mine, and I take this role very seriously. So just please consider my continuation, please.
Thank you, Jessica. All right, well, first off, we'll go ahead and motion. May I please have a motion to approve the continuation of Jessica Cruz's membership on the board?
I move to approve Jessica Cruz's membership.
Thank you, Rachel.
Continued membership.
May I have a second?
I second.
I second.
Thank you. Well, we get a few seconds. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. All right. Is there a discussion of the motion from the board?
Just that we really need Jessica's passion and involvement and expertise on this board.
Thank you so much for that. All right.
I have a comment too. Thank you so much. Yeah, so thank you so much, Jessica. I think it's important for us as board members when we develop a process for receiving applications and understanding the seat in which they represent, that now that we've created this process for allowing for transition amongst those seats, that we do, bring each other back in together to have this conversation around what we as board members are going to be bringing to our community, and this recognition that it is a transfer in organization. Like from my perspective, if I went from access to a different role, it'd be something very different that I bring to the community in my seat. So thank you so much for your willingness to come here and communicate your continued desires on the board. We sincerely appreciate it. It's not a need to really ask us for the approval, but more so just to represent who you are and what you plan on doing for the community. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Liz. All right. We'll now take a voice vote of everyone in the room and those online who have turned on their cameras. Those online who do not want to or cannot turn on their camera will have an opportunity to participate in a roll call vote after the voice vote. For those participating in the voice vote, please keep your cameras on until the vote is final. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. All right. I will now ask Brian to proceed with the roll call of those joining online.
Sienna Valdez.
Aye.
Thank you very much. The motion passes. Congratulations, Jessica. All right. Next up, we're going to have a motion to approve the continuation of Cricket Weatherington's membership on the board. May I please have a motion?
This is Rachel. I move to approve Cricket's continuation on the board.
Thank you, Rachel. May I have a second?
This is Danielle, I second.
Oh, I think Matt edged out just a smidge. So thank you, Danielle. All right. Thank you very much. Is there discussion or a motion from the board? No?
Just that we really need Cricket's passion and expertise on this board, both and just really thank both of them for going through this process today.
Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate that. All right, we will take a voice vote of everyone in the room and those online who have turned on their cameras. Those online who do not want to or cannot turn on their camera will have an opportunity to participate in a roll call vote after the voice vote. For those in the voice vote, please keep your cameras on until the vote is final. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. All right, I now ask Brian to proceed with the roll call of those joining online who did not have their camera on.
Jessica Raymond.
Aye.
Sienna Valdez.
Aye.
All right, very good. The motion passes again. Congratulations to the continuation of both Jessica and Cricket.
Just as a further point of clarification, now that that's been approved, I believe it's acceptable for both of them to join the meeting as board members.
Okay. Here we go. Thank you, Jessica. Good to have you back. All right, very good. Okay, moving on to the next agenda item, we have the Maricopa Regional Point in Time. MAG staff Brian will now present the 2025 Point in Time report.
Hey, Craig, can you do me a favor? Give me permission to share. I think you got the wrong one. Sorry. That's on us.
Okay, so it's not the point in time count?
No, there was there's a different version of it.
Okay, hold on one second. Let me just give you sharing permission. You should be a co-host already.
Give me 30 seconds, everybody. This is a 40 megabyte file. Okay, everybody, thank you for your patience. So as you will remember, every year per HUD, we're required to do a point in time count. It's a census for folks who are living on the street, unsheltered, and those who are living in shelter. We do this at the same time as everybody else in the country, just about. So within the last 10 days of January, and we go out either in the middle of the night or early in the morning, just like everybody else does, and then we send all that data back to HUD. So the first thing we'll just want to point out this year is that we had well over 500 volunteers going out and staff, and want to say thank you to everybody who made that possible. This is a big effort. And, you know, it's always been a big effort. So the folks that sign up for it year in and year out, they know what they're getting into and they do it anyway. You got to get up super early in the morning. Sometimes it's really cold out, and we just, you know, we appreciate it. Furthermore, we rely on coordinators in communities from here to Buckeye who pull together a lot of different people and are responsible for making sure those folks know how to use a mobile app, get the data in well after the day of the count. We're working with those people to clean everything up and get it done. So we just appreciate the time committed to this. Last thing I want to say is that, you know, point in time count, while, you know, it's a pain in the neck, you know, we got to do it. We don't always love it. The data that comes back in is just one data point out of many that we use. But I think that more and more we're realizing that it's an opportunity to focus on homelessness for at least a couple of weeks out of the year. And it's nice to have the community involved in this issue, you know, once in a while. And we take any opportunity we can to get people involved. So key takeaways for this year. Homelessness is up 1% since 2023. Why did we say 2023? Well, that will become clear in just a few minutes. 2024 was a bit of an anomaly, it turns out. But homelessness has not changed a lot. The trend line hasn't changed much since about 2019. We're seeing a steady upward increase, and then we're gonna kind of call that out in a few slides. Second point here, federal money for shelters expired last year, and that had a huge impact on the count. And then last but not least, as you all maybe you'll remember, the day of the count, right around 10 a.m., I think it was, we all got news of an executive order that essentially froze funding to everybody in this room and all of your subsidiary contractors. And it was intense. And I think in reviewing kind of how federal money has shaped this last count, we want to keep an eye on what it could do to shape future counts, whether or not that funding continues to be available. Mostly we put this here, you all are well aware of this situation, but I think folks in the public, maybe not so much. So this has been a highlight for us, something we really want to point out. As I'm mentioning that, we are going to go public with this information tomorrow afternoon. So we'll be putting a press release out shortly after we speak to city mayors at the regional council. MAG's regional council meeting happens tomorrow afternoon. And then immediately after that, we're going to send a press release. We would very much appreciate it if you could embargo this information until then. So no screenshots out to people, etc., until tomorrow, please. We're really trying to do well by our city partners to make sure that they know what exactly these numbers contain before the press gets a hold of it, if possible. Okay, so right hand column, 9,734. Last year's count was 9,435. So you'll see that's a jump. The bigger number to look at, I think, is the blue box there. So we lost a lot of shelter last year. If you look at this as a trend from 2019, you're just going to see kind of a steady increased curve with a little dip in 2024. And then if you look at just the blue, if you look at 2024, you're going to see that we started to trend in the right direction on the blue. And then we didn't. We went right back to where we were in 2023. So this is kind of it's two stories, really. It's the story of total unsheltered homelessness, and it's the story of sheltered homelessness in this region. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Also want to point out on that right-hand column, you're going to see a call out for shelter outdoor space, for the safe outdoor space. We spoke with HUD at length about including that number in the sheltered count number because we just think that the SOS is doing unique work in this space. There's a lot of tent sites out there across the country, but very few that offer 3 square meals, air conditioning, on-site security, and so forth. So we talked to HUD about it. We got an unequivocal no. You can't call it shelter. So we thought at very least we could point out that it's a little different than living unsheltered generally looks. Okay, so the big one right there is in the middle, 28% increase in unsheltered homelessness from 2024. 3% total, 16% reduction in shelter. As mentioned, we trace that back to the reduction in funds. Could talk a little bit more about where those funds come from, but in general, we lost about 1,000 beds across the region. Many of those in the central region, but not exclusively. A lot of those were temporary hotel shelters, but not exclusively. And so, really a tool that we were using broadly across the region to reduce homelessness after the pandemic kind of just went away. And now we're left trying to figure out what to do next. And I know the city of Phoenix has developed over 300 shelter beds with more permanent funding than that federal money was since then. That's, I think, not been included in this count because it wasn't ready in time for the count. So that's just to show that I think everybody knows this is an issue and is taking it seriously. By comparison, 2023 to 2025, very small increase in the overall number, unsheltered number, really nothing to note I mean, it's not a noteworthy increase or decrease if you take away 2024. We just put that for context. So once again, just to show kind of in relief here, 2024 was an outlier year, high water mark in our shelter progress as a region. And I think this is kind of what we're striving to get back to, albeit with more permanent shelter funds that are more reliable, more ongoing, et cetera. Lastly, just going to review some of the demographic and subpopulation numbers, and this will wrap it up for the presentation. We compare these, by the way, to our HTR homeless trends report numbers that come out of HMIS. Generally speaking, we're seeing apples to apples or comparable numbers here, with a couple of exceptions. Families, that number decreased on the HTR, sorry, increased on the HTR and decreased in the HTR for youth. But otherwise, very similar numbers here, PIT count versus HTR. So you can see that 22% of older adults, or of the count was older adults, just 5% were families. So that's individuals, not households. 6% youth, 4% veterans, 21% folks experiencing chronic homelessness. And I believe that's going to be it for today. I want to keep this a short presentation. If you have questions, happy to answer them. Otherwise, we'll keep it moving.
Brian, I have a question. What percentage would you say is missed from the point in time count that are actually homeless, but you couldn't count them? Has there ever been an estimate of what that real number is versus what the point in time count is?
So we have a few different data sources on this. If you look at the systems flow dashboard, you'll see that month of January, 13,000 people experiencing homelessness overall versus 9,700. So some slight difference there. That's people who are registered as active. So that doesn't include folks who are inactive, like off the grid and river bottoms, not getting outreached for one reason or another. So I think to the extent that our outreach system is good and reaching everywhere it needs to reach, and I think it's pretty good, we have a pretty good idea of who's on our by name list. And I would say that it's typically a higher number. That said, we're going to actually run some additional data. We're going to run some comparisons, try to get the systems flow dashboard compared to, like, for one night compared to the pit count for one night, just to see what that looks like. I anticipate, I mean, we always consider the pit a minimum number.
And was there any discussion in terms of, in one of the slides, it said federal funding, a lack thereof with cuts could lead to, was there any discussion of could substituting the word will?
Great question. I guess we got to wait and see what the Senate decides to do.
Okay. I mean,
it's a good point. I mean, I don't know that anybody actually thinks we're going to increase our funding from the federal government this year, but I think we have to wait and see.
yeah. I'm just saying that from a standpoint of, it's pretty clear that if that happens, it will, as opposed to somebody saying, well, that's not for sure. So I don't know what, we're a quote allowed to say back to, the powers to be, but I think it's a pretty clear statement that it will lead.
One other thing, so we're going to do a legislative update in a little bit. I would just point out too, in the information section of this packet before the consent agenda, we had a preliminary kind of outline for an advocacy plan. I think this is the kind of thing that the COC can talk broadly about. If the COC would like to put out a message about a federal funding losses would impact us in the following ways, we certainly can do that. And that's up to you guys to tell us what to do, and we'd be happy to talk through more on that.
Thank you.
See, Liz, you have your hand up?
Yeah, we always knew about the ARPA cliff coming September of 2025. And so I think it's important for us to really investigate a little bit further the reason for that increase in unsheltered homelessness. You said that we lost 1,000 beds that did not get and did not get to see any of the transfer in other more permanent programs during that time period?
What I know is that we lost temporary funding that went to about 1,000 beds, just a little bit over across the region. We're still doing a dive into where exactly those were. And I would say that's a question we've been asking for 2 years now, is where exactly are all the shelter beds, and which ones go up, which ones come down. We've talked about that at the last couple of board meetings, and we are working, with Solari to come up with a way to do that on a biannual basis so that there's an ongoing accounting for that. Liz, it's a very fair question, though. I think we all knew that there was an ARPA cliff coming, and I think to some extent there wasn't. There were temporary dollars, and unless there were a way to backfill those with permanent dollars from local funding sources, there wasn't a lot to be done about it. But I will say that everything I've heard is that folks were transitioned out of shelter into other shelters. The increase last year was not from folks who just lost a bed. That didn't happen. What happened was folks couldn't come into the system when there were fewer beds.
Okay, you think
comments on that?
Getting some more details around the storyline there is going to be important, because from what I've known of the system and the analysis we've done, that's not the answer there. And then in the safe outdoor space, we've had that since 2020. So have we always included the safe outdoor space in our sheltered population?
The safe outdoor space that the city of Phoenix operates started in November of 2023. Wait, sorry, 2020. Sorry, my dates are getting confused. 2023, 2024. I'm not sure. Anyways, it didn't become fully operational with the under the shade structure and with our full warehouse and everything until this year. So yes, this was the first year that we asked HUD and went through Brian, asked MAG to work with HUD to see if they would consider it anything else. And if nothing else, we needed to designate it, because it is very, very different from, say, an unsheltered situation where someone's, in a park or in the right of way, et cetera.
Yeah, I agree with it. I just was wondering how because we started the safe outdoor space probably under a different model, in response to COVID. So I was wondering how those individuals were counted historically, and maybe just making a reference to any historical count that would have shown a reduction in unsheltered homelessness, but is now counted correctly.
Counted as unsheltered.
What's that?
In 2024, individuals at the safe outdoor space were counted as unsheltered.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we've used that quite a bit to showcase how well we've done in investing in shelter. So I think really being clear on our data and how we kind of got to see this increase now prior to the ARPA cliff, I think is going to be important. But thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Any other comments or discussion around this?
I just have a request. I know, Brian, when you look at the reduction in beds, could you let us know what beds were designated to families and which beds were designated to single adults? That would be helpful.
Yeah, we could certainly do that.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, just a reminder, as Brian noted early in the presentation, if we could please embargo this until the appropriate parties have had a chance to receive the information. Thank you. All right, moving on to the next agenda item. Next up, we will have the Youth Action Board. Representatives from the Youth Action Board will now present an update on their current projects.
Hello, thank you, board, for allowing the Youth Action Board to give an update on what they've been up to. I will be providing that update on their behalf today. So we can go to our next slide. I wanted to start off by just sharing a little bit more about the Youth Action Board. I know some folks here may are newer to the COC board and may not have had the chance to hear about the Youth Action Board when it was forming back in November of 2023. So same time as Safe Outdoor Space, actually. And also, I know not everybody has had the opportunity to meet all of our members of the Youth Action Board. So I just wanted to quickly give an overview of who's on this board. So right now there are 6 members. As you can see, they've been on the board for varying lengths, starting with Joswell and Joey. Both have been there for 2.5 years since it was founded. And then our most recent member is Jacqueline Loza, who has been on it for just about a year now. All of them are actively involved with full-time jobs in other systems and organizations outside of the homeless response system. And several of them are also full-time students or pursuing graduate work as well. We can go to our next slide. So every year, the YAB does pursue the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Program grant. And as a part of that application, they are asked to submit a video. So I wanted to just share the first minute of that video from this past year, where they explain why they wanted to join the Youth Action Board and what this work means to them. So we can do next, and it should play. Oh, looks like we can't hear it.
All right, give me 1 second, man. Let me restart that for you. I didn't realize there was audio on this share.
Thanks, Greg.
1 moment, please.
And Craig, if the sound doesn't end up working, that's okay. We can move.
It will. Give me about 2 seconds. I just have to change the
Okay.
setting on my machine. I'll be right with you. My apologies.
There's something that each of us came to this
the audio
yak
now?
for. We all work towards the same goals, but we all chose to be here and continue to choose to be here for different reasons.
I want to increase mentorship among the youth in our community.
To expand on the group of people that were on the administrative aspect of helping the community and giving community solutions, who also have lived experience with the solutions that they are trying to problem solve.
To increase connections, networking, and community within our youth by holding a quarterly youth resource fair.
And a large part of it for me is that I am disabled, and I would love to see more resources that are compassionate and even available in the first place for disabled youth.
But we can do next slide. Awesome. So then just wanted to share a little bit of insight into their process as well, how often they meet, what their meetings look like. So with the recent award of the Youth Homelessness Systems Improvement Grant, they've been meeting a lot more. Very excitingly, they have a lot of work underway. So you can see here, every month they have at least one statewide board meeting. So that is in partnership with the 2 other COCs, Balance of State and Tucson Pima. All 3 youth action boards from each COC meet together. Then they also undergo a statewide leadership and data training each month. So, excuse me, different items that are brought forward just so we can increase the data literacy and capacity amongst the youth action boards across our state, as well as other leadership skills. Then our Maricopa Youth Action Board does meet twice a month as that regional board, and they also meet twice a month with our YESI partners. And then every week they have about 3 work group meetings, lots of different activities that they're going through in those work group meetings. But yeah, so definitely a lot of work that they are undertaking and putting forward during this time. Next slide. So I also want to quickly highlight just some of their accomplishments. Since they began, they pursued.
I'm sorry. Are all 6 people attending all 9 of those monthly meetings?
So
a lot of meetings. Sorry.
It is, yes. And I mean, fortunately, they're dedicated to it. So every Wednesday from essentially 5 to 8, they have all blocked out on their calendars to do that work and meet during those times.
Bravo. That's a lot of meetings. Thank you.
It is, yes. They, as I mentioned, don't work in the homeless response system. So they really are dedicated to this and want to show that dedication.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. So to highlight the accomplishments they've had since the past 2.5 years of existing, they've pursued over $30 million for regional funding and have luckily received some of that funding. I've already mentioned some of them. They've completed 2 Youth Homelessness Demonstration Program grant applications, the Youth Homelessness Systems Improvement application that was luckily funded. They've also supported and provided letters of support to organizations across our region that work with youth, particularly any organizations that receive runaway and homeless youth funding through Health and Human Services. Next slide. Also, they have been able, as I mentioned, work with community organizations. One way has been through providing letters of support, but they've also worked closely with PHX 350. Unfortunately, that program no longer exists, but they did help that program start. And they met with the program and talked about how to make this program accessible and usable, and that drop-in center accessible and usable to youth. They worked with, a mentoring program built specifically for transitional age youth who have experienced homelessness called Fire Mentoring, that was based out of ASU and the Office of Sex Trafficking Intervention Research. And the one other partnership I'll highlight is they worked with the Action Nexus over at ASU to build out a youth resource guide and really worked to highlight some maybe more unknown or little known resources that they used during their experiences of homelessness and what language would make that helpful and formatting. Next slide. I also just wanted to highlight, so everybody on this board is between the ages of 18 and 24. And so we do a lot of work around talking about leadership development. And I'm really excited to say a lot of them have taken that and taken what they've learned by being on this board and bringing it to other spaces in the community. Some of the members are on other youth action boards and other agencies. Some of the members have actually formed their own 501c3s and pursued funding for those small organizations as well. Next slide. So before I dig into their current activities, I just wanted to give a quick reminder on what the 4 goals are of the Youth Homelessness Systems Improvement Grant. You can see them here, and we've been able to talk about them in depth previously, but just as a quick highlight, we have 1, to establish statewide partnerships to address youth homelessness, 2, achieve system design parity across continuums of care, 3, develop career pathways for youth in the homeless response system, and 4, organize a statewide youth conference on homelessness. And next slide. Now, there are many activities that they are undertaking, all that align with the strategic plan that you all, the board, have set. These activities were all outlined in the information packet at last month's meeting, and also highlighted which activities, which strategic plan items these activities aligned with as well. But next slide, we can do a deep dive on a couple of these items. So the first one, looking at the FYI voucher expansion. There are 2 specialized vouchers that people engaged with DCS have access to. One is called the Family Reunification Program Voucher, or FUP for short, and the other is the Foster Youth to Independence Voucher, or FYI. Very excited to say that the YAB is working closely with DCS and DCS's YAB and a couple other partners, including Arizona Friends of Foster Children Foundation, New Covenant, and Lifeology, to look and kind of reimagine what our FYI voucher program looks like in the state of Arizona. These, up to this point, these vouchers have been awarded to youth, but have been underutilized. Many youth don't know how to navigate all of the processes and systems that come with receiving a voucher. And so we're looking at bolstering what this program does, making it more of a program at its core from DCS and less of just being handed a voucher. And so the Youth Action Board's working closely on that. One of the big things they'll be doing is speaking with the PHAs that award vouchers to review what language is being sent out to youth and what support are youth truly be receiving through this. Next, I wanted to highlight youth advocacy and storytelling workshop kind of together. I'll start first with storytelling workshop. This is something that the YAB has been working on for a couple months now, and they're very excited because this month we should be at the end of planning and developing this, and next month, or more likely July, implementing it. And so this is a workshop that they have developed. They received a training from a consultant around asset-based storytelling and how to frame your story to create change. And so now they're distilling what they've learned into their own workshop that they can go to youth service providers around our region to give that workshop and help kind of distill those lessons learned to other youth in our community. And this is connected to youth advocacy as well, because they've been using that and practicing their stories and refining their stories so that they can build awareness around what youth homelessness looks like in our region, and what that experience looks like. And in fact, just last week, they were interviewed by ABC 15 with a multi-part series to come out through the ABC 15 News later this summer. The other part I wanted to highlight around youth advocacy, I think just as you all are here at the COC board are regularly speaking about advocacy and what does that look like for the COC, that's definitely something on their mind as well. And one thing that they are currently discussing and working on is wanting to build out a fact sheet for a Senate bill that's at the federal level that would be focused. The bill being proposed focuses on uniting the two largest definitions of youth homelessness. As I'm sure all of you know, there's a definition through HUD and a definition through McKinney-Vento and Department of Ed. And this bill would connect those two so there was less disparities. And there, of course, as the COC at large kind of figures out what does advocacy look like, they wanted to just refine what that bill could do and what that bill would impact in our local region. And so building out a fact sheet to make accessible to our community. And then the last piece that I'll highlight is our State of Youth Homelessness event. So this is very much in line with one of the activities of the Youth Homelessness Systems Improvement Grant. And this will be a Tri-Hub simulcast event. So fingers crossed, all of that technology works. But the goal is that the balance of state, Maricopa and Tucson Pima will all be hosting an event all at the same time. And people will be able to attend it in person across the state. And there will also be a virtual attendance option, and really bringing together providers, community members, and policymakers and youth to learn about what does youth homelessness look like in our state right now? What does it look like through the lens of HUD and the COCs? And what does it look like through the lens of the Department of Ed and McKinney-Vento, as well as looking at other systems that we know impact youth homelessness. So with that, those were the 4 activities that I wanted to deep dive on. We can go to the next slide. I know that was a lot, and it was really fast. If anybody is interested in learning more, of course, open to questions now, but I know we have limited time. So you're welcome to also, as always, scan that QR code and you can book a meeting with me and we can discuss it more. Or if you'd like to attend any of the Youth Action Board conversations or meetings, again, those are every Wednesday. So just shoot me an email and let me know and we can get you set up.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate the update. Appreciate hearing about the work that's being done. Does anyone have any other comments or discussion points regarding this? Thank you, Matt.
All I can say is, wow.
Yeah.
This presentation was absolutely amazing, and the work that your group is doing. I was unaware, and I am sad that I was so unaware, because a lot of this is transferable to the LEAC under the Access Nexus and the Action Nexus, and also to the Lived Experience Collaborative. So I hope that you're able to bring some of this to the Lived Experience Collaborative, because this is definitely the path that we need to be taking as well. So bravo.
Yeah, definitely. And in fact, the storytelling workshop, the original storytelling training that was done with that consultant was done in collaboration between the YAB and the Lived Experience. And I know the Lived Experience Collaborative is working on some other elements around storytelling right now. But yes,
Yeah.
great. Thanks.
So thank you.
Thank you, Matt. All right, we'll be moving on. Good seeing you. Be moving on to the next agenda item. All right, next we're going to have the strategic plan work group update. We will have board member Elizabeth DaCosta, who's going to present an update in the strategic plan work group.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right.
So we're going to continue to come back every month to give you all an update. As you recall, we are working on 3 recommendations. So the first is to update our charter. The second is create memorandums of understanding, so MOUs with all of our staffing entities. And then third is to develop a competitive process for our staffing entities through an RFI, RFP process. So for the first item, we're actually going to pass it over to one of our strategic work group members, Nikki Ramirez, to give the update on the charter.
Good morning, everyone. Well, things are moving along smoothly in our charter update work group. We have concluded our final meeting where we are kind of deliberating over the different topics. And just as a reminder, these charter sessions were a complete reimagining of the charter, not necessarily just a rewrite or redlining, but truly a reimagining of what we would like this to look like moving forward with all the challenges we have ahead of us. So it's been great work. It's been very active. We have 10 members in total, and having participation from so many co-chairs and board members with such different perspectives and experiences through the system has been so very helpful. Our next 2 sessions will be about going through the charter as it's been drafted by our consultant. And so going through that together. In addition, each of us have homework assignments to take a specific section and really dig in and make sure that, everything that was discussed in the meeting is coming through in that document. One thing I would like to call attention to is when you do finally see a draft of the revised charter, it's going to be much more condensed than you are used to seeing. And that's because the intention is for the charter to really last us for many years and be more broad. And there will eventually be a companion document that will accompany the charter that helps us operationalize what we intended there. So don't be alarmed by the sudden complete reduction in language. That was intentional. So we're excited to really dive into that draft and share that with you all. After we have our draft ready for public consumption, it'll go out for public comment for a 1-week period. Then it comes back to us with that feedback. We'll take another look at that draft and see how we need to incorporate the public's feedback. And then it comes to the board for a vote. Any questions?
I just have a quick question. So the revised charter will go out for public comment. Will the corresponding book go out with it as well?
That is not ready yet.
Oh.
That we have been on an ambitious and aggressive timeline just to get the charter to this point. I think one of the next topics for the strategic planning work group is how we bring to life that companion document, who needs to be at the table, what that process looks like. I do not assume that that will be a short process.
Thank you, Nikki.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Thank you. Back to you, Liz.
Thank you so much, Nikki. It's excellent. It's the first time I've actually been a part of developing something for the board, like the charter or the strategic planning, where we've included the chairs and co-chairs of our collaboratives in the process. And so I think we're actually truly capturing like the vision of our continuum of care and those who will be responsible for executing all of the work. So Nikki is a perfect example of just an awesome person who is very involved in the continuum of care, and now her voice and expertise is being pulled into our charter. The next piece in our recommendations is our memorandums of understanding. So we've recognized that once we build out this charter, we have some expectations for our staffing entities, and we want to place expectations on ourselves as board members. And so we're going to come out with MOUs for each of our staffing entities that are going to help us clarify roles and responsibilities as we move forward. We need to make sure the charter is complete before we can finalize that work, but Charles and Mike are actually leading those efforts for us. We've got example MOUs sent over to our consultant. We've got additional topics coming out of our charter that we want to make sure are included in those MOUs going over to our consultant. And so that will kind of be the next draft of work that comes out as those MOUs. I'll pause to see if Charles or Mike have anything to add or if there's any questions in relation to the MOUs.
I'm fine with what you just stated, Elizabeth.
Perfect. And then last is our recommendation to move forward with being a board that believes in a competitive process for our staffing entities, which is a big deal. We want to make sure that we follow a procurement timeline where we submit for a request for proposal for our staffing entities within a specified period of time. That timeline is being developed in our charter right now. And then we as board members will be responsible for executing on that. So it could be every 3 to 5 years that we do a request for proposal to identify a new staffing entity. In order to really inform that work, the next step is to do a request for information. And that's where the board posts a request for information for any organization interested in trying to find a solution for us and some of our requests and needs to present a proposal for us to investigate. And so then that RFI usually helps come back and bring information for the board to decide, oh, these are some really excellent solutions we want to proceed forward with. Here's some risks with doing a competitive process that would then go in and inform our request for proposal. So lots of work being done. We need to finalize the charter and the MOUs first. But the next step in the RFI process is we are going to be sending out a survey. So individuals within our continuum of care who are interested in participating in the development of the request for information process and work group can express their interest. I'm just going to tee up today that it's going to be really important for anyone who is interested to make sure of the time that it's going to take to be able to do this work, the level of effort that we're going to need you to put into it. And we will clearly identify that in the survey when we send it out as well. But that's it for the strategic planning. Sorry, I always mess this up between charter update and strategic planning, but that's it for the strategic planning work group. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to let me know.
Thank you, Liz. Does anyone have any comments or questions? I just want to recognize Liz and Nikki and all of the individuals who have participated in this process. I know it has been a lot of work, a lot of dedication, a lot of time. So just like to take a moment to recognize everyone who's been involved in the charter, the MOU, and who will be in the RFI, RFP. So thank you. All right. No further comments. Next up, a representative from the Arizona Housing Coalition is going to provide a legislative update to the board.
Hello, everybody. So many things and so little to report on. I'm going to start with the state. The state House and Senate are on break. That doesn't mean things are not happening. What's happening in the moment are lots of budget negotiations, which is where the renewal of the Department of Housing and the renewal and hopefully the expansion, but nobody can be sure, of the state LIHTC program. The Bipartisan Housing Caucus hosted a happy hour last week where we had 2 developers share with members that came the importance of the low-income housing tax credit, both as a as the goalpost, but also as a preventative measure. It was well attended in spite of the fact that there was an early release, and kind of like kids in high school, when there's an early release, all the lawmakers make for the door. But we still, I think Steve Kaiser, our lobbyist, had hosted it. And I guess what brings lawmakers to the yard is postino and cocktails. So we had a fair number of folks that were willing to listen. There is more going on at the federal level. Before I move in the Fed, one of the things that I do want to let everybody know is the drug-free homeless zone bill was vetoed by the governor, for which we are very grateful, along with the mixed hoteling bill. The challenge that we are facing at this moment is the renewal of ADO has drug-free homeless zone language in it, which is not great for those that are doing the work on the front line. But what they're trying to do is they couldn't get that bill passed legislatively. They knew the governor was going to veto it. So now they're trying to hold the Department of Housing hostage in order to get that language in it. We are working with all people to figure out how to extricate the drug-free homeless zone language, and we will keep everybody abreast. But now we have people that are grappling with, well, if it stays in, how long should we want the renewal be? And so it's a little like splitting the baby. We're trying to manage it the best that we can, and we're hoping that members see if you want reform to the Department of Housing, it should be done outside of the renewal bill. We need a clean renewal bill. So before I move on to that, I just move on to federal. I want to pause and see if anybody had any questions on that. Okay.
Brian with MAG. Nicole, could you tell us any approximate time frame on that ADO going forward with the rider?
I have no idea. I can just tell you some insider ball. We've got a member of the House that is getting married in Italy mid-June. We thought that, they'd be wrapped up. We've got the chair of appropriations that wants to get to Michigan. We thought it would hasten it. We are now in the era of trying to beat the longest session each year. So that's a lot of word salad, Brian, to tell you, I don't know. My hope is that within the month, but I don't know. My understanding is that they have not gotten very far in budget negotiations.
And I'm sorry, this is Vicky. Can you just clarify again what elements of the two bills that were before the governor have found their way into the ADOH? Is it the signage, the mixed hoteling, which pieces of it?
No, it's not the mixed hoteling. It is the drug-free homeless zones. So it is putting up the signs, and then providing additional sentencing to people that are found guilty, and
providers are also
yes,
right. Providers accountable who are doing the work. Okay, thank you.
The other piece that's in there is how to prioritize housing trust fund dollars into the bill. And we are going to defer to the Department of Housing, but we articulated to the bill sponsor that we like the way the Department of Housing convenes all stakeholders, and they do a pretty comprehensive job of making sure that they hear from all members of the community before they decide how to invest their dollars. But for whatever reason, they are wanting to prioritize emergency shelters and transitional housing.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Okay, federal stuff. One of the things that the coalition is trying hard not to do is be reactive to news out of Washington and dealing exclusively what we know to be true. What we know to be true at this point is that there is a budget bill, not ironically called the Big Beautiful Bill, that is navigating its way now to the Senate. It passed the House. It doesn't directly impact housing, but it does impact a lot of the things that support our work. So we are having quiet conversations with our federal lawmakers. The things that we do know are moving. Well, the one thing that we know that's moving is the Tax Credit Improvement Act, which is the federal LIHTC. There is a very strong bipartisan bill that is making its way through the House that seeks to make more flexible the federal LIHTC and would generate more housing units. From our federal lawmakers, there are a number of bills, including the one that the YAB committee brought up, which I think is Senate Bill 1667, Homeless Children and Youth Act of 2025. None of those bills, whether it's that one or Juan Ciscomani's U.S. Production of Essential Residences Demonstration Act, it's a lot of words. Senator Gallego's Housing Vouchers Fairness Act, which seeks to change the way that housing vouchers are allocated to the state. and then Representative Ansari's Haven bill. Those three bills don't look like they're going to go anywhere. Most bills only have a 11% chance of making it to be enacted, but these bills are not looking very likely to advance. What we're talking to federal lawmakers about, and we're doing it with some level of verve, is to ensure that emergency housing voucher dollars stay around to prevent people from falling into homelessness. We are also talking about HAG grants to make sure that at a minimum, the funding level stays the same. Making all 11 of our federal lawmakers here in the state of Arizona understand the impact of withdrawing those dollars and just the math of it. I think Yab shared appropriately that storytelling is an important part of advocacy work, but when we are trying to talk to all of the political subdivisions, we need to understand whether they're moved by data, they're moved by stories, or they're moved by both. And so what we're finding at this point is most of them are being moved by data as it relates to the budget. So we're trying to make it as math oriented as possible. So yes, you can save a few dollars, but this state doesn't invest any real money into our collective work. Our collective work is largely funded by federal buckets. So if that reduces, the strain on the system is going to be pretty vast. So emergency housing vouchers, housing choice vouchers, and HAG funds are what we're constantly beating the drum on. We realized very recent last week, I think on the 25th, that we had a couple of our federal lawmakers that had not signed on to the emergency housing vouchers work. And so we reached out to Siscomani, Stanton, Senator Kelly, Representative Ansari to sign on to a letter that was said to the THUD Appropriations Committee to make sure that those EHVs got continued. So I know that's a lot. I actually took a break this weekend and I did not create a slide deck for y'all for you to follow along. So I wanted to see if anybody had questions or if anybody was interested in reaching out to either the state or our federal lawmakers, because we've got talking points if you are ready, willing, and able.
Thank you. Does anyone have any additional comments or anything they'd like to discuss further on this? Thank you so much. We appreciate your information, your update, and we will definitely keep that in mind if we want to reach out for some talking points. We have the capacity to do so.
Thank you all.
All right, moving on to the next agenda item, we have a website transition plan. Amy St. Peter, Community Initiatives Director at MAG, is going to present a website transition plan for the board's review, input, and possible action.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for this time on your busy agenda. Craig, I don't know if you have a copy of the website transition plan document. There it is. Thank you. Can you make that font a little bit bigger, please? I really just want to focus in on the table there. So at our last meeting, we offered the invitation for anyone serving on the board or otherwise working with us to be able to offer input on what a Continuum of Care website would look like. This can be a really important tool for the Continuum of Care to very clearly and directly communicate your key messages. We also have an email address that is being set up right now for both the chair as well as from a communications perspective for the board. So between the website and those email addresses, we think that this will really improve your opportunities then to just carry your message very directly to the general public and to your critical stakeholders. So with the website, this is what we've developed so far. I wanted to run this by you. We are happy to make any changes that you might want to direct, but in general, we would still retain some information, of course, about homelessness on the MAG website, but a lot of the material concerning the Continuum of Care would go to the Continuum of Care website. And so some of this content has already been developed. It's already existing right now on the MAG website. That would just transition over. Some of it would be new and or updated. So the who we are, the overview, we really anticipate that changing. There's a lot going on right now with the board. It's very dynamic. And we want to make sure that this website really reflects where you are right now in this process. Things like the charter that is undergoing an extensive, not just a revision, but maybe a whole rewrite. So if you like, we can post existing existing charter and then update it, or we can wait and just post the new charter whenever you're ready to share that. Matt and Corinne are taking the lead on the Youth Advisory Board pages. So we are excited to see that information I become available as well. Some items on the new website that we're proposing would be brand new, such as advocacy. It's really important, particularly given these very dynamic times, that the continuum of care can very clearly communicate what your priorities are and what your concerns are. This website would be a great way to be able to do that. Also having a donate now button. So if folks are willing and able to donate to support the work of the Continuum of Care, we would be able to disperse those funds out into the community. The funding survey that was shared with the board agenda packet earlier is still available. So if you are wanting to offer input on where you'd like to see fundraising activities, the donations, that's one tool for it. Fundraising would also be occurring per your direction in areas like grants, other sponsorships, things like that. The grants could come both from public, private, and other sources. So just want to run this by you today. It is up for possible action, and we very intentionally put it as possible action because if you'd like to see refinements made to this plan, we are happy to make those changes and then bring it back to you. And if you'd like us to proceed, we would be continuing to work closely with you, particularly on the new content. I'd like to pause now and see if you have any questions, any input, any direction.
Just when you see strategic planning there,
yes.
My preference would be that it wouldn't just be static. Here's the strategic plan that was once developed,
yes,
but that it would also indicate the progress that we're making on the strategic
Excellent.
plan ongoing.
Yes.
That's all.
Happy to do that. Thank you. And a note on this too, we are happy at MAG to staff this website and to maintain it for you so we can make those updates. If you have any interest in others from the board or your designees being able to go in directly and make updates, we can provide that access as well. So let us know, but we're happy to keep this update. And yes, absolutely, that the value of a website is to make sure that it's current. So it'd be great to post those updates. Thank you.
So Amy, with regards to the meetings and calendar, can we talk about the details of how people would actually access a meeting?
So the Continuum of Care meetings?
Right. So I guess right now on your website, it's like you have to contact somebody to be added to a meeting. Is there a way to initiate it through the website? I'm interested in coordinated entry. I'm going to go on. I see that it happens on the, third and whatever, second and fourth Thursday. How can we just have that automatically added to a calendar without your staff having to do that? I think that would
Absolutely.
increase access.
Great. No, that sounds great. We are happy to look into that and to report back.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank
definitely.
you.
Thank you. And two, if there's any feedback in terms of kind of the look and feel of the website. So if you want a more informal tone, a more positive, or just whatever that looks like, please do let us know. It would be done, of course, with the Continuum of Care's branding as it currently stands, and would take the look, color, feel of it from that.
Amy, quick question. So I know you've been working with the co-chairs a little bit on the website, but would it be possible to bring like the before we go live? Could we bring it?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yes. We would love to have that time and feedback and direction from the board.
Any other comments or discussion regarding this topic? All right, I think what we'd like to do at this particular point is a motion to approve the website transition plan and the development of a new Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care website.
I'll make the motion.
May I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll do it. Can you guys hear me?
Cricket? Okay, I'm sorry, Cricket. May I have a second?
This is Rachel. Second.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Rachel, second. Thank you very much. All right, is there any discussion of the motion from the board?
I would like to say that I really appreciate their responsiveness, Meg's responsiveness to items such as this.
Thank you, Cricket. All right. We'll now take a voice vote of everyone in the room and those online who have turned on their cameras. Those online who do not want to or cannot turn on their camera will have an opportunity to participate in roll call vote after the voice vote. For those participating in the voice vote, please keep, sorry, one moment. Lost my place. Please keep your cameras on until the vote is final. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. I will now ask Brian to proceed. All of those joining online who did not.
Jessica Raymond,
Aye.
Sienna Valdez,
Aye. All right, very nice. The motion passes. Right, next we have MAG updates. MAG staff will now provide updates on ongoing collaborative applicant duties and projects.
Don't have any major updates, and seeing as we're running a little short on time, I'm gonna just limit it to a reminder that in July, we're planning to have a meeting. That could always change. The board felt that there wasn't any need to. Sometimes we've skipped this in the past. Last year, we proceeded with a meeting because we had a lot on the agenda. If and when we have a meeting, you'll get notification and it will be in person. So please just plan for that. That's all the updates I have today.
All right, thank you. Next item is a request for future agenda items. Do board members have any other action or discussion items for future meetings?
This is Rachel. I just want to make sure we get a collaborative on the next meeting agenda too. I know we're trying to bring, even though we may have, we heard from Data Collaborative, just wanted to make sure we're hearing from every collaborative at every meeting, or a collaborative at every meeting.
Thank you, Rachel.
So we had just real quick tentatively planning to have, I think, either Data or COC. So we'll touch base with both those groups, just see who's going to be prepared to go, and then we'll get it on the agenda.
We are prepared to go. COC collaborative, excuse me.
All right, very good. All right, thanks, Rachel, for bringing that up. Yes, Liz.
Yes, last board meeting, we went over the clutch data share request, and so we were supposed to get an update this board meeting about how things have progressed and if they've determined who from the community will evaluate the results. So I'd like to get an update added to next month's agenda.
Yeah, Liz, this is Brian confirming that we will add that to the next agenda. Apologies, we really just got them access. It's been a little bit slow moving at the beginning for them getting involved, but we will check in with them, make sure that the agenda item shows up on next month's agenda.
That's great, thank you. I just suggest it remains standing until we can make sure the contingencies are met. And then separate from that, we also approved an update to the Dwell AZ membership policy, I believe last board meeting. And the next one, I'd like to get an update on who from the COC board sits in those seats following the requirements of the updated policy. So for the Dwell AZ membership. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz, for those updates. Okay. Nothing further. The next item is the board roundtable. I'd like to open the floor for a roundtable of announcements, events, challenges that you might want to address, or opportunities to come together. Do any board members have anything they would like to share?
Yes, June 24th, we'll be having a Project Connect in Maryville. And if you're interested in being one of the providers or volunteering, please go to our Keys to Change website.
Tish, you said June 24th, Project Connect in Maryville?
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. Yes, Liz.
Yes, we have continued the work with Arizona State University on the development of the statewide standard operating procedures. So very excited. They did send out the first draft for prevention out to any of the members who have participated in any of the sessions. So just want to keep on highlighting everyone's focus on this until we complete it. We're set to wrap up the entire project September of 2025. So if you can please review the first draft of the prevention standard operating procedures and provide your feedback, it would be greatly appreciated. And then also they sent out the next sessions for everyone to continue on with session 2. So please make sure you're registered, and thank you so much for all who participate.
Liz, can you just share real quick when that information was sent out?
Yes, it came from Cynthia Martinez about 2 weeks ago in email.
Okay.
And I can have her resend it out today too after giving this update. So you'll see it again today and then also the sessions you can register for.
Thank you, Liz. All right. Any other updates or anyone else to wish to share anything? All right. Just want to thank everyone for their presentations, for their updates and their participation. Welcome back some familiar faces to the board. And with that, we'll conclude the meeting and adjourn. Thank you.